With the recent confirmation that Japanese and Chinese cards can be used in tournament play in North America, Europe and Oceania, we've put together this deep dive comparing the card stock of these different regions. Come check it out. What's up Illumineers, it's Charlie here, and today we will be taking a closer look at the cards from different regions to see how they compare to each other. Since Disney Lorcana's release, foreign language cards have been legal for use in tournament play. Not much on this topic was ever exposed in the rules, except by section 1.1.1 from the comprehensive rules document, which reads, Disney Lorcana cards are published in multiple languages. For the purpose of gameplay, the English cards, rules, rulings and clarifications are the official versions. However, with Disney Lorcana being released in the Japanese and Chinese markets, some first samples of these newly printed cards started to pop up on the internet. With that, a lot of questions were raised when it comes to the differences in their card stock. For clarity, a card stock, also known as cover stock and sometimes pasteboard, is a paper that is thicker and more durable than normal writing and printing paper, but thinner and more flexible than other forms of paperboard. Between the East and the West, the cardstock used for Disney Lorcana has some very apparent differences, with the East having better quality and thicker stock. The main reason being because the Japanese market is distributed by Takara Tomy, while the Chinese one by Sakasaka. Because of that, the community was unsure about the legality of using, for example, a Japanese card in tournaments that take place in North America. And this worry was mainly because players could potentially tell their cards apart if they mix Eastern and Western cards amongst their deck. It took quite a lot of back and forth between content creators and the community voicing their concerns and questions about this matter, until we finally received an official statement from Ravensburger back on January 29, 2025. The statement reads, there have been some ongoing questions regarding the tournament legality of Japanese and Chinese cards in North America, Europe and Oceania. Like other languages that have joined Disney Lorcana, Japanese and Chinese cards are no different, and are allowed to be included in your Disney Lorcana TCG deck in these regions, so long as the cards are sleeved with no discernible differences between them. Please be aware that if there is a discernible or noticeable difference among the cards in your deck, tournament staff may deem you to be playing with marked cards. For Japan and China, there are special rules for card legality when it comes to language. Within Japan, players may only play with Japanese cards at this time. Within China, players may only play with Chinese cards at this time. Currently, no other languages may be used within these regions. And so the biggest conclusions to take out of this statement are, sleeved Japanese and Chinese cards, as is already the case for other languages out there, are allowed to be included in your deck. If there are any discernible differences in your cards for any reason, they won't be allowed. These rules are only applicable to North America, Europe and Oceania. In Japan and in China, only their language-specific cards are allowed in a competitive space. The key word to take from these rules is the word discernible. What makes a card discernible? Is a card's thickness and weight enough to make something discernible? Can a player tell their cards apart when shuffling and drawing their deck? This is what this video is all about. We will take a deeper and closer look at the different card stocks and compare the North American, European, Japanese and Chinese cards side by side. And we'll also do some test checking them inside and outside of sleeves. So let's do this. First of all, let's compare these cards just by eye. Let's take a quick look at the cards side by side just using the naked eye. This is a North American card compared to a European card. This is a North American card compared to a Japanese card. You can already notice the difference in thickness. It's the same too when we compare a North American card with a Chinese card. And finally, let's compare a North American card with a North American Enchanted card. As you can see, the thickness is already different between a regular and Enchanted card, even within the same region. But let's make this a little bit more scientific. For this, we're going to use a digital caliper from FineSource. We'll link all of the products used down in the description in case you want to grab your own. Let's start by using a North American card as our control. As you can see, a North American card's thickness is 0.2 millimeters. Next, a card from Europe, specifically Germany. The thickness is also 0.2 millimeters. Now for a Chinese card. Even holding it, you can definitely feel a difference. And it's true because the caliper shows it's 0.3 millimeters for the Chinese card. And the Japanese card is roughly the same. Also at 0.3 millimeters. So as you can see, both the North American and European cardstock have a thickness of 0.2 millimeters, while the Chinese and Japanese are slightly thicker with a value of 0.3 millimeters. It's also worth noting that enchanted cards tend to be thicker and heavier as well. Let's look at this, and then along came Zeus North American Enchanted card. This has a thickness of 0.3mm, which is different than the regular cards of the same language, but approximately the same difference as non-enchanted cards from China and Japan. Card weight is a little bit trickier to measure, but we're going to give it a shot for this video. It's tricky because even between cards of the same distributor, they can have slightly different weights, even among non-foil cards. For this, we're going to be using a high precision digital gram scale from Prime. Let's start by using a North American card as our control once again. As you can see, a North American card's weight is approximately 1.81 grams. Next, our European card. The weight is slightly higher at 1.82 grams. Now for a Chinese card. The weight of this card is surprisingly less despite being thick, coming in at about 1.77 grams. And the Japanese card comes in at about the same, roughly at 1.77 grams. So somewhat surprisingly, whilst the cardstock is thinner, both the North American and European cardstocks have a higher weight of around 1.81 grams, while the Chinese and Japanese cards, although they have a thicker cardstock, have a slightly lower weight of 1.77 grams. And when it comes to our enchanted card, we can see that it weighs even more at 1.95 grams, which is way above all of the other cards we weighed. Even though there are differences in the thickness and weight, that doesn't necessarily mean that these are going to be detectable when sleeved and stacked inside of a deck. For this demonstration, we're going to be using sleeves from the sponsor of this video, Heavy Play. If you'd like to pick up some Heavy Play curved sleeves for yourself, you can check out the link in the description of this video and use code Inkborn10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order. So here we have our regular deck of 60 cards, single sleeve. Inside here we have 56 North American cards, 1 EU card, 1 Japanese card, 1 Chinese card, and 1 North American Enchanted. Can you spot them when we hold them on the side? How about when they're stacked on the table? When shuffling, we can't really feel a difference between the cards, but of course we're not experts on this. But we certainly couldn't pick out the 1 Japanese or 1 Chinese card from our deck by feel alone. Now we have our cards double sleeved, which further minimizes the perceivable differences between the cardstock. This is using a 40 card deck. Once we've inserted the different foreign language cards, can you spot where they are when we hold the deck on the side? How about when it's stacked on the table? In our opinion, if you're planning to use foreign language cards or even enchanted cards, definitely double sleeve them. This will help minimize any perceivable differences, which should give you and your opponent peace of mind. But also be aware that at any time, if the tournament organizer for the event you're attending decides that these are somewhat easy to spot, they can make the decision not to accept it during the tournament. So be ready for any changes that might be needed, whether that's bringing cards from your own region or even the non-enchanted version as a backup. And that's a closer look at some of these foreign language cards. Hopefully that's put your mind at ease so you know that you can use those in your deck. And if you want to see us open some of those Japanese cards, be sure to check out the video linked above. We'll also be publishing our video opening the Chinese cards very soon. And if you found this video useful, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for future content, including that Chinese box opening. And a huge shout out once again to Heavy Play for sponsoring this video. Their details are in the description below if you want to get your hands on those amazing curved sleeves. And until next time, happy questing!